All right. Here speaking with Phil about Power Book 4 Force. Tell the world how you are doing today as we got a bunch to talk about.
Absolutely. I'm doing great. I'm so hyped. Sunday's the big day. We just came off a fantastic premiere. So this week is, it's like cloud nine every day, you know.
I was at the premiere last week. I only attended the afternoon one. I didn't go to the evening one because it was blazing with snow.
It was. Yeah. How was it?
It was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, I've seen it weeks prior, but I wanted to go there to meet some people, see it again, and pretty much experience the whole thing.
Yeah, it was a great premiere. The night was just beautiful, and it was funny because as soon as the screening was over with, it started to snow on the rooftop, so it was picturesque. It was beautiful. It was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it also fits the Chicago theme. And now let's get right into it.
Yeah.
Before we delve into the scenes that you were in, did you audition for any other characters besides the one that they gave you?
No, I didn't. And in fact, I was not casting's first choice for this role. I sort of had to muscle my way in, got a hold of the script, and then talked to Joe. I still had to audition and go through the whole process, but I was not thought of.
And then next thing you know, I saw your episode that you were in, which was the first one. You had a very intense brawl with Tommy outside of that bar. So tell me about the background of it. How did they make your arm look like it was completely snapped? And what was the stories like of crafting that scene?
Absolutely. Well, before I left LA to go to Chicago, they sent me to a special effects studio, and they had to do an entire sort of upper half body cast of me that I had to sit in for a really long time. And they sort of like, it was like all silicone based. Remember that? And there was like 5 or 6 people that like, they were putting this stuff all over my body, and I just sat there. And then they sort of used a razor and sliced it and pulled it off like a jacket or a shirt almost. And then from that, they made the arm, but the arm was something like, I think it cost like $18,000 or something. I mean, it was some insane piece, but it was done somehow with like magnets. So it was attached to my body, and then my arm was strapped behind my back. And then then they made the arm so when it broke, it had bone pushing through and all that. So it was great.
That done in one take though? Now knowing that it was about over nearly $20,000.
No, and what I'm really proud of, and what I'd love people to know about that scene that Joe and I do, it took hours and hours to film that scene, and they did not use the stunt team on that.
Wow.
The director chose to use us. We did all of our own stunts. Joe and I choreographed that whole scene together. I'm not taking credit away from the stunt guys at all, but that was a choice that we made. So we were there we were outside. It was like, 0 degrees. I mean, it was like really cold, and we were out there and we were doing it, and we were taking the falls and the hits and all of that. I woke up the next morning, I had bruises all over my arms, down my ribs. I mean, we were both hurting and aching. I was like, oh boy. After I did that, that was the first time I ever did my own stunts. I gave a lot of credit to stuntmen who do it all the time, tough stuff.
You have any conversations with 50 Cent when it came to that scene as well, or y'all just was like, hey, let's go straight to the script, we gotta do this, do that? What was those conversations like?
Well, in regards to the fight, it was really talking with Larissa, the director. 50 wasn't on set for that scene that day. He had been, but he wasn't then. And I think we shot that thing, it was like midnight or 1 a.m. or something. It was the last thing of the day. And so we'd had long days, but we talked with Larissa. I mean, we worked with her a lot. They were in like a video village inside, and we would do a take, and then she would come out. I mean, she was heavily involved, but she was sort of coming out in every take. And she's like, she would make little additions to it. But 50 I talked to at the premiere, and he was just so nice and complimentary, and he was like, man, I love your work on the show. Thank you for being a part of it. 50's heavily involved and pays attention.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Great. The nicest guy.
Now, well, what exactly brought you into the Power universe? And my second question to follow that is, were you a fan of the series prior to joining?
1000%. Joe Sikora is one of my best friends, oldest friends in this business. I've known Joe since I've been 18. We came up together through Chicago. And then Joe's also my writing partner. What people don't know is Joe's a great writer, so we've written some scripts as well. So, of course, I was a huge fan of Power. And I remember when Joe booked the show originally, when, you know, it was just still an idea and they were shooting. So yes, huge fan of Power. And I knew that the show was coming up and that there was going to be a spinoff. And then I wanted to be on it if I could. You know, I had auditioned for Power, a role on Power, and didn't get it. So Joe and I always, you know, felt like this was a good opportunity. We had never worked together as actors, only as writers. Never worked together on stage or, you know, in front of the camera. So, you know, it didn't work out with Power, fortunately, because we got to do it on this. So, you know, as soon as, you know, we got the pilot script and they started casting, like I said, I just, you know, casting didn't think there was anything right for me. I read the script. I was like, no way.
Right.
This is completely my role. This is crazy. I'm auditioning for this role, and you know, the rest is history. You know, now, I mean, you can't, you know, when I tell some of the cast members that story, they can't imagine anyone else doing the part. You know, so.
Now, I've asked a few of the cast members last week of if they think that Tommy was entering in this world in the wrong time in this place in Chicago because the other shows were taking place in New York. What is your take on that? If you feel like Tommy is seen as an outsider coming in?
1000%. You know, he's leaving that whole entire New York life behind him, everything he knows, his identity. And you know, he's not even planning on staying in Chicago, you know? So, you know, in a lot of ways, replace Tommy's car with a horse and you sort of have got a Western almost. It's like an urban Western, you know, he's sort of riding into town and, you know, I mean, he's making his way and no one's going to mess with him, but he doesn't have any allies, you know, he's got a lot of enemies. You know, he sort of gets in the middle of these two warring drug, you know, families basically. But he's, you know, Tommy's going to take care of Tommy.
As he always does.
Yeah, okay.
Now, what is your biggest takeaway about this season, especially with the episodes coming up after the first one's premiering this week?
They're awesome. I'm so excited for each episode just builds on one another. And I feel like the great thing about this show is that if anyone hasn't watched Power and they come in and they watch the series and they get hooked on it, they're then going to become a fan of Power, you know, so they'll sort of go back and watch it because I think this one is going to open up new audiences. So each episode is more and more of a nail biter. It just, you just, the screw keeps turning and turning and turning and turning, you know. So I'm excited, you know, a lot of action. Chicago is a huge character in this show, the city of Chicago. And that I think is really, really unique because there's a lot of shows that do that in New York, like Power, but we haven't really seen that with a Chicago show in a long time. So I'm really excited about that because it's a new landscape, unfamiliar territory, really for, you know, most of the world that's going to be watching the show.
You know, it's quite an interesting insight because when I asked 50 Cent last week, the reasoning between choosing Chicago opposed to New York, he said Chicago is a character also. So it's quite interesting insight that both of you got the same mind about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and 50's, you know, we know him for music, but 50's a great, you know, master of cinema. I mean, he knows the visuals, he knows storytelling really, really, you know, like the back of his hand. So that was no accident.
My final question for you, which episode have you been the most proud of being part of for the season?
Oh boy. It's a really great question. I mean, all of them, of course, but I mean, I'm always proud of the work I do. Probably, probably the first one. You know, each episode, as you do them, you get more comfortable as an actor on set with people you haven't worked with. So you start to sort of fall into your performance a little more, fits like a glove. But I would probably say the first one because of the moment that I got to have with Joe with doing that fight scene. And that was just something that was like, to me, really special to us to do together. So probably number one, but it's a neck and neck with all the other episodes because I'm proud of all of the work I did with Shane, Flanagan, all of those guys.
Oh yeah, especially Flanagan. I was a fan of his since the Sons of Anarchy days.
Oh, I'm a huge fan.
Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much, and thanks a lot for having me. And can't wait to see everyone's reaction on February 6th.